guys, so today we're going to be getting into some makeup playtime. I haven't done one of these videos actually, I feel like in a while. I think I missed one in June just because I had a lot of other things going on and other dedicated videos, so I don't think I've done makeup playtime since May. And now that my no buy has become a low buy, my birthday has passed, I have quite a few new goodies to play with. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be creating this crazy smoky green eyeshadow look, glowy face cheek situation using a whole bunch of new products that I'm currently testing, and I'll be letting you know my thoughts, my first impressions along the way. Knowing how long I've been filming, I have a feeling this video is probably gonna be, you know, on the long side as per the usual, because apparently I'm incapable of making videos that are less than 30 minutes nowadays. But anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna stop rambling. We're gonna get into playing with some makeup. I'm going to be starting out with the Ren Perfect Canvas Skin Finishing Serum today as my primer. This is not new. This is something I fell in love with last summer actually. It's really great if you have super oily skin. It doesn't have any silicones in it, and it smells like juicy juice, which is kind of odd, but pleasant. Anyway, I just find that this really like smooths out my skin and helps to control shine and oil throughout the day without like clogging up my pores. Now, one of the products I do want to test out today is this guy. It's the new Maybelline Superstay Full Coverage Under Eye Concealer. So I thought it would be appropriate to use the Superstay foundation today, so I'm gonna put this bad boy on. And again, this guy is not new to my collection. I think I picked up this bottle sometime at the beginning of the year because the shade I used to have, if you guys saw my recent declutter, it was way too dark. And this is number 128 Warm Nude, and honestly, like if you can look at this just swatched on my face right now, like it's pretty dark. It works for me right now because I'm definitely tan. My face is significantly lighter than my body, so putting on a slightly darker foundation will ultimately like blend in with my neck. I just don't understand if this is shade 128, like how light is the lightest shade, or is there a gap there? Because this seems to me more of a medium tone shade than a light shade, so that's just a little bit confusing. All right, so foundation is good. Honestly, I do really like the Superstay. It's pretty full coverage. It's got a nice satin matte finish before you set it down with powder, and I don't feel like it feels super heavy on the skin. It is a slightly thicker texture, but like it doesn't bother me too much. It's maybe not the kind of thing I would want to wear every single day, but for, you know, a special occasion or days where I want my makeup to really last a long time, I feel like this guy does do a decent job of holding up. Now moving along to another new product. This guy here I'm excited to show you. This is the Becca Anti-Fatigue Under Eye Primer, which honestly sounds super ridiculous and gimmicky. I would have never actually gone out of my way to purchase this product. I got it because one of you guys signed up for BoxyCharm last month, and they did a promotion. If someone signed up with your referral link, both you and them got a free product, and this was the one they were giving away. And so this showed up on my doorstep, I think last week, and of course I had to give it a try. And you guys, this thing is the kind of product like I never knew that I needed. It feels very silicone-y and balmy to the touch, and you basically just take this guy and pat it into your under eye area. It looks like you haven't even applied anything to your skin. It's super lightweight, but what I find is that it really like fills in those teeny tiny fine lines so that your concealer doesn't settle into them. I've tried it now with a few different concealers, and I feel like every single time my concealer looks better than it would if I wasn't wearing this thing. And I know just like the idea of needing a separate primer for your under eyes seems like the most extra thing ever, but honestly, now that I'm in my 30s, like I'm just starting to notice those fine lines a little bit more, and I'm noticing concealer settling into them, and it can be super frustrating because it just doesn't look real nice. So I'm pretty pleased with that, and of course here I am testing out this concealer, so this is gonna give it a little leg up. I did use this the other day without the under eye primer though, and I liked it. It wasn't super creasy, it didn't look terribly dry and like crunchy under my under eyes, so I don't feel like the primer is gonna make this guy like do a complete 180, but I'll show you what it looks like. So first we've got this like paddle style applicator, which I like. It's not too big, but it's not too small. It lets you spread product pretty nicely. Going on, this seems full coverage-ish, not like the most crazy pigmented concealer ever, but it's definitely not sheer. And it blends in pretty nicely. I'm just gonna bring this up on my lids to cover up any discoloration. But yeah, with the Superstay foundation, I mean, I would hope that it would, you know, pair well. And I feel like it does. Like without setting it, I feel like my under eyes look brightened. They look a little bit actually luminous. I don't know how long it will take for this to dry completely or if it needs to be set down with powder. I'm gonna set it anyway because if I don't set my face, I turn into a giant greasy hot mess after like an hour. But yeah, just based on the first couple of uses, I feel like it's a nice looking concealer. Let's just stick with the whole Maybelline family and set things down with the Fit Me loose setting powder. This is one of my favorites from the drugstore. I think this guy is so good. It adds just like a teeny tiny bit of coverage along with setting your makeup. So if you have like a BB cream or something that you want to add a teeny bit of coverage to, this guy is awesome. To just kind of lightly set down my whole face, I'm going to use a big old fluffy powder brush. This is a brush from MOTD. I believe this is from their Fairy collection. It has this really cute little like prismatic-y kind of handle. I love it. Pixie. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a Pixie collection. Either way, I'll link the set in the description box for you guys. So I just work the powder really well into the bristles of my brush, and then I'm just going to lightly tap this all over my face. All right, so I'm looking super matte, just maybe a little bit powdery, but I promise you guys it won't stay that way because this is the struggle of oily skin. Now, as we move on to bronzing up the skin, contouring things a little bit, I do have yet another new product to share. This is the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer in a little mini baby size. I picked up this little set they had at CVS. I had a whole bunch of coupons and got like a ton of stuff from CVS for less than 20 bucks. It was pretty ridiculous. So this guy is the Deep Bronzer shade, which I previously hadn't tried. I have the original butter bronzer in the bronzer shade, and I absolutely love it. I've been trying to pan the same compact for an eon, and it is taking me forever. And that was honestly part of the reason why I had no qualms about getting a set of minis, because I know it'll take me a while to go through this, and I don't need to pick up the full size anyway. So I am curious to see how this compares to the original butter bronzer, how much deeper it is. I'm gonna try to go light-handed so I don't go overboard. I mean, I know the original formula is super blendable and also very buildable. It's not too pigmented on my skin, but I don't want to chance it with this. And then to apply this guy, I actually have a new brush set from MOTD that I want to use. They just sent this over to me recently. This is a really cool brush set because it's eco-friendly. All of the handles are actually biodegradable, which is really awesome. They come in this little kind of cotton canvas pouch, which is super nice, and you get a contouring brush, you get a small buffing brush, then you get an eye shader, and then like a little eye pencil brush. So I thought we could try out the contouring brush with this bronzer today. As per the usual, these bristles are super soft, so I'm just going to tap a little bit of this on here. It does look pretty dark, we'll see. And I'm just gonna start gently buffing this right under my cheekbones. This brush definitely is nice if you want a little bit more precision in your application. Like if you have a smaller face and you don't want to have bronzer all over your entire cheek, I think this would be really nice to use. Also, the shade of this is definitely significantly deeper than the original butter bronzer, which is good because the original butter bronzer would have been a setting powder on basically anybody with a remotely deeper skin tone. I can't say that this would necessarily also work for super deep skin tones. I think this would probably work more for people with medium to tan skin, so I would love for them to keep at it and release another shade that was even darker than this guy. But at this point, something is better than nothing, right? Yeah, I am pleased. The way this is blending into the skin is really nice. Definitely the same good old tried and true butter bronzer formula. Has the same kind of scent, although honestly in this little mini compact I feel like it's not as strong as it is when you buy it in the full size. Alrighty, so let's move on to blush. This guy I'm really excited to use. This was a birthday gift from my mom. I'd kind of been eyeing these for a while, so I'm really happy that she picked one up for me. It's one of the Too Faced Fruit Cocktail Blush Duos, and this is one of the new shades they just recently launched. It's called Like My Melons, which has the cutest little watermelon print on the front. And then on the inside, it has a little watermelon on the mirror, which I think is so cute. And then this is what the pan looks like. So you have a blush on one side and then a highlight on the other. And you could easily mix the two of them together to give yourself like a blowy glush effect. Did I just say glowy blush or blowy glush? The only thing I am slightly concerned about with this is that if you look closely at the pan, this tan kind of highlight side has flecks of glitter in it, and I'm not a huge fan of glitter and blushes and highlight, but we'll see how it actually translates to the skin. All of my usual suspects for blush are currently being washed, so we're going to use this large angled contour brush from Sigma and hope it works out all right. So I'm going to start by just kind of gently going into the blush side first. Let's just see how this looks all on its own. This guy is scented too. The smell is not super watermelony to me. It's actually not my absolute favorite, but it doesn't smell bad. Color-wise though, I feel like that's really pretty. Definitely gives a nice hot pink kind of flush to the cheeks, which I think is very spring summery. And it's not going on like insanely pigmented. It's pretty easy to blend out, which I appreciate. And this guy I feel like maybe has just a subtle bit of sheen again on its own. It's nothing that's like overkill, but gives a nice kind of healthy glow. So that's super pretty all on its own. Let me just give this other side a bit of a swatch. It feels actually very dry in the pan. Obviously, this kind of color is a little bit too dark for me to use just as a highlight. So let's see what happens if I just kind of tap my brush into both of these pans and just kind of layer maybe a little bit more of this on top. Yeah, so really this is just gonna amp up the glow factor a little bit by layering the shine on top, which I think is, again, very pretty. I feel very tropical right now wearing this. I'm gonna take a little on my nose, just kind of tie everything together. Yeah, I actually think that is really quite pretty. When I was looking at this online, I was afraid it was gonna be way too dark for my skin tone, but I actually think it's perfect. Like, it shows up for sure, but it's not like crazy over the top. Now, something I want to do that's kind of inspired by Mel Thompson is to just kind of make sure that my blush and bronzer is all blended really nicely into my foundation before I go in with highlight, and then I might buff and blend again a little bit more. So I'm going to take the buffer brush from this Moda set, and I'm going to actually pick up just a little bit more of that Fit Me setting powder from Maybelline. So I'm just gonna take this up on the edges of where my blush and bronzer meet my foundation. I'm just gonna gently buff to kind of make sure everything is nice and soft and blended. I know that Mel has like specific powders just for buffing. So, I mean, I'm just gonna be using my regular old setting powder, but her face makeup always looks stunning, so I figured I would take a page out of her book. Now, I don't have a new highlight to test out this moment, so I'm gonna just be using my LORAC Mega Beam Highlight in Gilded Lily. That is just one of my absolute favorite highlighters ever. I'm gonna use this little Moda highlight brush. It's kind of a little bit big. We'll see how this works. I'm just going to gently buff a little bit of this. Oh, so pretty. This highlight is everything. It is so beautiful. If you have yellowish undertones, a light medium complexion, it is just the most gorgeous highlight because it's not too yellow gold, but it's not too icy pink. It's like a true perfect peach, and I just love it. The reflection is stunning. It just like melts into your skin. It's amazing. And then once again, I'm gonna take my little buffing brush, kind of right up on this edge, make sure that my highlight doesn't look like a giant stripe on my face. And I'm actually going to take my blush brush as well and then just blend kind of the lower edge of that highlight again, so that way everything is kind of more seamless. Yes, I am really liking the way the face is looking right now. I feel like it is very glowy, summery. I feel like I've been out in the heat and look a little bit sweaty without actually being sweaty, which I'm good with. So now I just need to fill in my brows, which I'm going to just speed through quickly because I don't have anything new to show you. Just gonna be using my iconic London eyebrow cushion in medium. All right, so while I was at it, I also threw on some eye primer. I'm using my NARS Smudge Proof eyeshadow base because we are about to play with a brand new eyeshadow palette that I'm pretty pumped about. So I just recently picked up this guy, which is the new Milani Gilded Noir palette. I used my $10 of platinum rewards from Ulta to get this guy for 10 bucks. This is a really beautiful, primarily shimmery eyeshadow palette with a lot of really cool jewel tones. I don't really have an eyeshadow palette with this color story or anything quite like it, which is why I wanted to pick it up. And honestly, when I swatched this guy in Ulta, it kind of also blew my mind a little bit. Like, I know y'all are looking at this guy right here, which is the blue shade called Gasp. I feel like Milani aptly named this guy because, I mean, that shadow is pretty jaw-droppingly beautiful. There's also this gorgeous, kind of like blue purple duochrome called Dripping. Oh, look at that. This guy has me written all over it. I love duochromatic shades, and that is just perfection right there. I feel like that's the kind of shade that would also be really beautiful as like a topper to transform another shade. But I think for today's look, I might actually go for this green, which is called Twisted. Now, mind you, when you put your fingers in these, they feel like butter. They are super soft. So here is Twisted. Lovely. Really nice, dark, smoky forest green. And honestly, part of my motivation of why I want to use that color is that I also have this little MBA Cosmetics Loose Eyeshadow in Oblivion that I just got sent. This is also a green. It's a little bit lighter, and it is so glittery and shimmery, and oh my goodness, it's stunning. So I also want to use this, so I'm thinking this might be really pretty to layer over this guy right here. So let's just get rocking and rolling and seeing what we can come up with. I'm going to start by going into the shade Entitled, which looks like it's kind of a satiny taupe matte. I'm just going to begin by buffing this guy into the crease. I'm just using an MOTD Cosmetics Seamless Sheer Blend brush. Getting a bit of fallout in the pan when I dip my brush in here. This shadow is probably super soft, but that is also not atypical of Milani. So on my skin tone, this shade is very, very light. Like, it's definitely creating a bit of a shadow in my crease, but it's not anything that's very dramatic. And I don't really have like a dark brown or a mid-tone brown in here. This shade Lust is kind of a matte plummy brown kind of shade. So, I mean, I think that will work fine with the green. Let's try to just like build it up gently. I'm gonna grab this Luxie large shader brush. Just gonna pick up a hint of this, and I'm going to tap it into the outer corner. Just gonna start to create some dimension there. Yeah, and it's not that this guy isn't pigmented, it definitely is. I am just trying purposefully to go in really, really light because I don't have like a mid-tone transition color. But I like that I can apply it sheerly. It actually makes it much, much easier for me to work with. All right, so let's see how this Twisted shade picks up with the brush. I've got a Sigma eye shader here, which is a nice flat brush. Does look like it picked up quite a bit of pigment, and I don't have a ton of fallout in the pan, so that's nice. Question is always, how will it pack on? My lids, man, they are kind of gigantic. Sometimes it's a giant pain in the butt, actually. Just gonna go in with this Luxie brush to smooth out that edge. All right, so I feel like this is gonna be one of those looks that's gonna require a lot of blending to look good. That green shade definitely does layer up well with the brush. It's very smoky, but I'm hoping once we go in with the pigment and some other things, it will kind of like lighten it up and eventually it'll all come together. I'm now just going back in with that Luxie brush and the shade Lust again, just to make sure that the edge of where the twisted shade meets the crease, is intensified and not patchy. And then I can also go in with my original Seamless Sheer Blend just to buff out that edge. And I do want to make sure that the inner corner is not too dark. So I'm going to try this shade next to the green called Solid Gold, because it's not quite as vibrant and bright as this yellow gold here. And I'm just going to pop this into the inner corner. And I'm going to take this and kind of blend it up into the green, create a little bit of a gradient. All right, so let's go in and add some of this gorgeous sparkly pigment. I'm gonna take my NYX glitter primer, and I just squeezed out a little bit onto the back of my hand. I have an MOTD Cosmetics under the cover brush. I've learned apply the glitter primer with a brush lure, and I have a lot more precision that way. So I'm just gonna take this basically all over the lid, concentrating more on the inner to mid portion. Then I'm gonna go in with my Sigma eye shading brush that we use in that green shade. Make sure you tap off the excess real good, and then just gonna stamp this on top. Dang, MBA Cosmetics, that is beautiful. I don't know, man, I feel like loose pigments don't get enough love. I think a lot of people are afraid they're gonna be too difficult, too messy, but like really, they're not very much worse or more difficult to use than a pressed shimmery eyeshadow. And if anything, I feel like the effects that you get are just so much more intensely sparkly and reflective. Like, look at that. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of perfect things a little bit. I'm taking a small smudgy brush from Moda into the shade Twisted from the palette to really build it up, and I'm building it on the edge of where I put the pigment so that way I get a little bit of a green gradient effect. And then I'm going to take one of my favorite brushes. This is a Sigma E45 tapered blending brush. It's got a really nice fine point, so it's good for doing like detail crease work. So I'm just going to take the shade Lust, and I'm going to make sure that my crease is all nice and even. Honestly, I feel like my crease is not even a crease, it's like a cavern. I have such like deep set eyes that I feel like eyeshadow, it's just kind of tricky to blend in there. I'm like blending underneath my like orbital bone. I don't know, it's odd. Anyway, a brush like this is nice because it just makes sure everything is kind of even and smooth. And to be honest, I really don't have a lot of fallout in my under eyes, which is impressive considering how smoky this eye look currently is. I'm also going to take that same shade Lust on this Sigma brush, and I'm going to use this to buff into my lower lash line, because obviously if we're super smoky on top, we gotta kind of tie everything together and carry some of that onto the lower lash line. I'm also realizing now that I probably could have done a better job matching my cheek products to this super smoky eye, but whatever, that's what makeup playtime is about. It's just testing and trying things and having fun and not taking makeup too seriously. So I feel like with this dramatic of an eye look, we kind of need liner and lashes. So I'm actually going to be using this for the first time today. This is the Sigma gel eyeliner in the shade Wicked. I'm going to be using this with their small angle brush, which is an E65. And I've heard that this gel eyeliner is supposed to be amazing, so I'm pretty excited about it. And like, I enjoy felt tip pens and like traditional liquid liner, but whenever you're doing anything with a lot of glitter or like a loose pigment, I feel like the glitter glues and all that kind of adhesives that make that stuff stick on your eyes will totally gunk up any kind of a liner pen. So really, I feel like the best thing to use over the top of those guys is a gel pot with a brush. Well, I will say it is going on very creamy, very black, not tugging at all. So far, so good. All right, so I just had to stop and take a phone call. So while I was at it, I popped on a pair of falsies. I'm wearing these luxury synthetic lashes from MOTD Cosmetics. These are in the style tempted. They are very curly, and I feel like it's looking extra, especially like whoom, on this eye. I don't know why, my eyes are not even, they're not the same shape on both sides, so whenever I wear falsies, I feel like they look completely different on this eye than they do from this eye. I don't really know what to do about it. It's just my face being weird. Anyway, I feel like with how dramatic this eye look is, it definitely needed the falsies because like my eyelashes just disappeared without them. But yeah, the Sigma liner went on beautifully. Definitely enjoying it. We'll have to see how it wears and if it smudges or whatnot, but it seems to dry down super matte and super black, and it glides on really nicely. So A++ application wise. So I'm just gonna throw on a nude lip because I feel like I need something to counterbalance this eye situation. So I'm just using this Wet n Wild Mega Last lipstick in the shade Bare It All. Such a good nude. Yeah, this is just like my perfect kind of nude shade. It's not too light, not too dark, it's not too pink, but not too brown. It's just a warm, kind of peachy nude, but that's not so light that it makes you look crazy washed out. And then I think I'm gonna throw a little bit of gloss on top. This is the Tarteist Glossy Lip Paint in the shade Insta Famous. It's a really pretty kind of shimmery gloss, and this stuff smells like heaven. It is so scrumptious. Alright guys, so here is the completed final look from today's makeup playtime. You'll have to leave a comment and let me know what you think. I like it. I mean, I definitely feel like it came out nicely. It's just very bold, very dramatic, not exactly what I would normally wear, like going to the grocery store or running errands, but that's perfectly fine. I mean, I feel like if you can't create a fun, dramatic look during makeup playtime, then when can you? So I am going to zoom you guys out and we will wrap things up with some final thoughts on what we tested out today. Alright, so some final thoughts on all of the things that were new that we tried out in today's video. I do really think this little Becca under eye primer thing works some kind of witchcraft. It really does seem to smooth out my under eyes, which I cannot complain about. But I do feel like $30-something for a separate primer just for your under eye area is a little extra. It's a little over the top. So do I think people need to like run out and buy this? Not necessarily, but like if you really struggle with dry under eyes and fine lines and concealer settling, I mean, and maybe if you feel like splurging, it's worth trying. Then we have the Maybelline Superstay Full Coverage Under Eye Concealer. I feel like looking at my under eyes up close, this isn't looking like horribly dry or cakey or anything. I think setting it with the Maybelline Fit Me powder definitely made it that much more matte. When I used this the other day with I think the Fenty setting powder, it looked even less dry. So really I think this is gonna be a matter of what I mix it with, what I set it with, trying to make sure that it doesn't look too heavy, because on its own before it's set it looks actually really quite brightening and hydrating in the under eye area. So maybe if you were someone that had super dry under eyes, you could just get away with like not setting this at all. But I feel like the coverage is decent. It was very easy to blend and it seemed to work well with the foundation, so no complaints there. We have the little mini of the deep shade of Butter Bronzer. I did actually like this quite a bit. I feel like it gave my skin a nice contoured appearance. It has a little bit of a glow to it. It's a really pretty powder. Would I repurchase this over the original Butter Bronzer? I don't know. I really do love the original and I feel like the color of that one is just like, you can't screw it up. It's so buildable, it's so blendable. Like, my heart kind of will always belong to the original, but I'm glad that I have this guy to try out. Then there is the most adorable Too Faced Fruit Cocktail Blush Duo. Again, I was actually pleasantly surprised by this. I feel like the way that this actually applied to the cheeks, it wasn't too heavy. Even though it does look glittery in the pan, I don't see any chunks of glitter on my cheeks. I just have quite a bit of glow, which I do think is very nice, very summery. Again, not a super huge fan of the scent on this. I feel like that could have been better, but I do absolutely adore the packaging. I realize I am such an idiot. I did not use the eye brushes from this set, and I totally meant to. I just used the face ones, so that was really dumb of me. But you guys have seen me use tons and tons of motor brushes here on my channel. I absolutely love them, so like I'm sure these eye brushes are great. I did really like the face brushes though. They're a little bit smaller, which is actually really nice for more precise blending, especially when you're someone like me that has kind of a tiny face. So this contouring brush, I think it did a really nice job of contouring my cheekbones. This buffing brush I felt like was really nice for kind of buffing out the edges of my blush, bronzer, highlight, etc., and making sure that everything looked nice and seamless. So definitely enjoy these brush shapes a ton, and I love the whole fact that the handles are biodegradable. I think that's super cool. This Milani palette I think has a lot of promise. I obviously only got a chance to use, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, and technically 5. I used a little bit of this black just to kind of smoke out my lower lash line a little bit, so I've only used like not even half of this palette. So I feel like it's gonna take me a while to really have a full opinion on this guy. What I will say though, right off the bat, is that there are not a lot of mattes in here. You basically really only have 3 to work with. One's a black and one's a really dark plummy brown. So I think you kind of need to pair this with another palette with mattes if you want to have more versatility in the kinds of looks that you can create. Fortunately, I own the Milani Most Loved Mattes palette, so I have that at my disposal and a ton of other eyeshadow palettes, so I don't mind that. Like, I like that I can dip into this for more accents and fun pops of shimmer to put on the lid, because that's primarily what this palette is. Just know that I don't think this is like your ideal travel palette. I don't think this is the kind of thing that's going to be your one and done if you're going somewhere, because you're missing a lot of kind of like staple blending shades that I think would make this guy a little bit easier to use. The MBA Cosmetics Loose Pigment, so stunning. I think these guys are like only $4 or $5. They're really reasonably priced. Yes, they're small, but honestly, there is so much product in here, you probably would not go through the whole thing anyway. So if you've never tried a loose pigment before and you've been curious, this is a great place to start because they're not going to break the bank. And of course, the Sigma Gel Eyeliner, I think, did a beautiful job. Super creamy, super matte, black. Pretty much, you know, what I expected from Sigma, and having heard so many great things about this. And I think that is everything that was new that we used in today's video. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope it was fun to play with some makeup. Again, definitely let me know what you think of these products. Have you tried them? Are they on your wish list? Are they something that's like completely not interesting to you at all? I will try to make sure that everything I use will be listed and linked in case you want to check anything out for yourself. And I, of course, will be continuing to test and try everything that we used in today's video, and I will be giving you my updated and finalized thoughts later in the month. So I think that's a wrap. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.